Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're making a heat register deflector. Well, I'm sure that you guys have seen them before. They are generally a piece of plastic that slides together to make the length variable. They got a curved back on them, and they make it so that you can deflect the heat to blow it forward in floor registers. Now, for my house, it's a little older house, and some of the sizes of the registers are they're a little larger than what these fit-all ones come with. So we're going to make one today. And it all starts off with some 1/2-inch maple. Well, I have this scrap of maple, 1/2 inch thick. What I want to do first is I need to cut the basic square for the deflector. And in this case, what I want to do is cut it to 2 pieces that are 4 inches by 4 inches. Now these 2 pieces are going to form the side uprights of our deflector. And the size of my rad, or the width of the rad vents, is 3.5 inches. So I've set my compass here to a 3.5 inch radius, and we're just going to draw that radius from one corner all the way out, just like that. And we'll do that on both pieces. Now, at this point, we need to cut these out. So you can cut them on the bandsaw, you can cut them on the scroll saw, you can cut them by hand with a fret saw and sand up to the line. I think I'm going to cut these over at the scroll saw with a number 7 reverse tooth blade, and then we're going to take them over to the belt sander and I'm going to trim them tight to the line so that they're both identical. So before we take these over to the sander to clean up that line and make them the same, we're going to tape them together using some double-sided tape. Now here's a piece of advice for you. Peel one side of the tape. Once you get it peeled, put your 2 pieces together and then clamp them up. Let it sit like this for a minute or 2. What that does is it lets the adhesive from the tape really set onto your stock. Once you've set it up there for a couple minutes, then take them apart, peel the backing, line up your edges so that they're perfectly aligned, and then clamp it back together again, leaving it for a couple of minutes once again so that it has time to set up. And once that's all said and done, you can just unclamp it and we'll head over to the belt sander. So all we need to do here at the belt sander is very carefully sand both pieces at once, just up to your line, your 3.5 inch diameter, so that both pieces will be exactly the same. Now when you use that clamping method to let it set up, don't be surprised if it's a bit of a bear to get apart, because that really helps it to adhere. So you just want to get in there with a putty knife, and you could just give it a gentle twist. Eventually it will let go. But as I said, don't be surprised about how tightly it holds, because it really does get it to get a really good seal on there. There you go. Just like that. Simple, right? Okay. So we now need to make provisions to allow these to attach to our vent. And the vent is metal, so I'm going to go with magnets. And I have these bar magnets. And all I'm going to do is over at the router table, I'm going to set it up to be able to route a 3/16 of an inch wide groove that will be 5/16 of an inch deep. And I will embed these magnets this way into our uprights in order to allow them to attach to our heat register. So let's get those grooves routed in our uprights. Well, for our groove, I actually went with a 1/4 inch wide to give some room for the 5-minute epoxy to ooze in there and hold the magnet in place. So the depth of it is basically enough to allow the magnet to just slightly protrude over top of this. So what I'm going to do now for each of these pieces, I am going to mix up some 5-minute epoxy, apply it in the groove, and then sink our magnets in there, and then we're going to let it set up. And if you have a little bit of squeeze out, oops, just got some on my bench, but if you have some squeeze out, the way that you can clean it up is just a little bit of rubbing alcohol on a Q-tip will clean it up beautifully with no sticky residue left over. So if you have some squeeze out, there you go. Real easy to clean it up. Well, we now need to measure for our deflector, or the rounded part that goes over this. So we need the measurement from this bottom edge here all the way around to this edge here. Now, there's all kinds of ways you could do it, formulas and whatnot, but all I'm going to do is place my curved edge on the edge here of a piece of paper, line it up, and then carefully roll it along the paper until it touches down with the other square edge, just like that. And I'm going to place a mark. And then I'll just measure that distance. And it looks to me to be 5 5/8. Now I will just take another measurement of that just to verify, because what we're going to use for our deflector is a piece of Lexan. Now, what we're going to need, according to our measurements now, is that 5 5/8 wide, and however long our register is. In my case, the register is 15 inches, so that will be the length that I cut this. So get your dimensions that you need, your amount of your curve as well as the length, cut your Lexan, and then we can move on with attaching it. So with the Lexan cut, what I've done is I've drilled some holes 1/4 of an inch in from each edge and 3/8 of an inch from the long edge so that we can mount it to our deflector. But what we're going to do is we're going to only screw in the bottom. So we're going to line up our Lexan here with the bottom edge, the bottom of our rounded edge here. We're going to line it up so that it's centered there. We're going to mark for our hole and drill a pilot hole for a number 6 by 1/2 inch brass screw. And then we're going to screw this together. Now when you go to screw this down, something I'll point out is don't forget to peel back a little bit of your protective coating. If you don't, you're going to have it trapped there under the wood and you're going to have an issue. And now I'm just using a brass cup washer that will help distribute the pressure on the Lexan, and a number 6 brass screw, and we're just going to screw this in place. Okay, just like that. Well, I can tell you right now, even though this Lexan is pretty flexible, you're putting a lot of pressure on it to try to bend it around this radius. So what we're going to need at this point is a heat gun. All right, well, let me just explain what I've got set up here. I have a 14-inch piece of wood clamped to the inside to keep these sides square. I have my straight edge clamped to the bench, and I have my deflector magneted to our straight edge just to keep it stable. So the first thing you're going to want to do is peel off your protective coatings. And now our whole purpose here now is to melt this Lexan. So I have a piece of board here to help me form it so I'm not touching the hot plastic. And just on low heat, you want to evenly flow across your piece. And once you hit the certain temperature, this stuff goes like rubber. So you'll know when you get there. But essentially, you want to heat this up to make it pliable and then shape it to your maple uprights. And when you're done, you can drill in your last 2 screws to hold the top in place. And that would be about it there, boys and girls. If you wanted to, because I could have done a better job of bending this if I would have taken my time here, but I was kind of rushing for the camera. But if you want to and you did not get a perfect bend, you can put some silicone, some clear silicone, a thin bead right along here on the inside edges. That will just help to seal it. But all in all, I mean, that's about it. It's a lot sturdier and a lot better looking than the ones you get in the store, that's for certain. But there you go. It's a simple idea, but a very practical one. And there you have it. A heat register reflector. Guys, today's show is extremely simple, and it came because of a necessity. For the office that I have in the house, because of the position of the way that I have furniture and that sort of thing, I have one of my computers blocks off that heat register. So I need to deflect the heat to blow out along the floor level as opposed to blowing straight up into the air. So this will suit my needs. Now, if you had it, say, underneath a Chesterfield or sofa or a love seat or a chair, you could elongate this to make it so that it not only blows and blows forward, but you can channel that so that it comes out the front of your chair or sofa, making it so that it gets into the room as opposed to being blocked by your furniture. There are plenty of reasons to deflect your warm air from your furnace. It's all up to you on how you do it. So either way, there you go. A heat deflector. One of those things that may or may not suit you, but I know it's going to solve my problem. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. A little bit of a simple show. I'd like to point out that if your heat gun is not quite cutting it, you can use a blowtorch, like a propane handheld torch. Just be very careful because it doesn't take much to burn the Lexan if you hold it in one place for too long. But take your time and you'll do just fine. Guys, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Click the bell and then you won't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. I hope you've enjoyed the content. I hope for some of you, you're going to try this for yourself. And honestly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another Alternative Tuesdays.